Okay, I think we should start the session. So, good evening and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, depending upon where you're from. On behalf of the Poultry Professional Society, I warmly welcome you all to the Society Webinar Series 2025. Myself, Mohammed Syam Akram, the founder president of Poultry Professional Society, and currently the MPhil scholar at Arid Agriculture University, Rawalpindi, Pakistan. So this series is designed to bring together leading experts, professionals to share knowledge, experiences, and insights that can shape the future of poultry science. So before we begin, let me share a few housekeeping notes. Kindly keep your microphones muted during the entire session to avoid interruptions. This webinar is being recorded and will be made as post-event on our social media pages, particularly on our YouTube channel. So if you have any questions for our speaker, please type them into the chat box at any time. All questions will be addressed during the Q&A session at the end. So Ms. Inika Imtiaz, who is the co-moderator of this session, will host the question and answer sessions at the end. So now it's my privilege to formally begin today's program. It's my honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Professor Dr. Peter Ferket from North Carolina State University, USA. Dr. Ferket, so let me give him a very brief introduction. Professor Dr. Ferket is currently working as a professor of nutrition, biotechnology, and poultry science at the prestigious Department of Poultry Science, NC State. So Dr. Ferket also serves as the director of the Animal Health and Nutrition Consortium. His contributions to poultry nutrition and biotechnology are internationally recognized with over 650 publications, 8 patents, and a software disclosure to his credit. His pioneering work spans perinatal nutrition, skeletal development, immune function, gut health, feed additives, and sustainable nutrient management. So truly we are honored to have you, Dr. Ferket, with us. Thank you very much for joining. So before I invite our distinguished speaker, I would like to call upon our session chair, Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, who is our Director of Poultry Advisory Committee, PPS, and currently the Associate Professor of Poultry Nutrition at PMS, Arid Agriculture University. So Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, over to you. Please give a very short welcome to our keynote speaker and participants of this session.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. President. Hi and welcome to all participants, particularly our guest, Mr. Professor Dr. Peter Ferket. So on behalf of the Poultry Profession Society, I extended a very warm welcome to all participants and colleagues joining us from around the globe. We are especially grateful to have Professor Peter Ferket with us today, whose work has profoundly shaped modern poultry nutrition and production system. The Society Webinar Series 2025 is our effort to connect global experts with local challenges, fostering the dialogue and collaboration that benefit not only Pakistan poultry benefits, but also wider international community. I encourage everyone here to actively engage and absorb the insight from today's keynote. With that, let's look forward to an inspiring session. Thank you very much. So please welcome Professor Dr. Peter Ferket.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, for your kind words. So now, without further delay, it's my honor to invite our guest speaker, or now the distinguished professor of poultry nutrition, biotechnology, and poultry science, Professor Dr. Peter R. Ferket, to deliver his lecture on the topic developing technologies to address challenges in poultry production. It's over to you, Dr. Peter, just let me unmute you and make you the host. Give me just 1 minute.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction, Dr. Nasser and Mohammed. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be one of your keynote speakers this weekend. Hopefully, you'll be able to follow some of my presentations. And as I get my presentation up and going here for you, hopefully everybody has an opportunity to see uh, my presentation there on there. So if somebody can give me a little thumbs up that it works, Mohammed, then we're ready to go. Okay, so my presentation today is about developing technologies to address emerging challenges in poultry production. And my presentation today is based on a lot of research that I've been doing in my laboratory and my research group, but also which I think is emerging things that I think anybody who's in the poultry industry might be very interested in pursuing as opportunities. So if we think about just the global food situation, the question we all ask are we ready to sustainably feed 9 billion people that's going to be on this world? And think about the world and our children, what they will inherit, and with that, the future of the world agriculture. We're going to have to not only feed them, but also do this in a very sustainable manner. And back in 2007, all right, so that was 18 years ago, the FAO listed four major challenges for the global health and welfare of our population. And that is demand for protein products, the threat of epidemic diseases, environment and climate change, and competition for nutrient resources. And if you look at that list, well, we are still can say those are our major global challenges. So over the past 18 years, these issues have not only developed in a more dire state, but also will continue in the future. Now, whenever there's a major change and shift, and I really believe that we're on the precipice of a major change in the world. And I kind of look back at some of the history, and during the turn of the century, way back in the turn of the 19 to the 2000s, that was a period of mechanization. All right, so there are lots of machines, factories were being developed, and Henry Ford, who was an American auto innovator, uh, was one of those innovators that really changed the playing field. Well, during that period of time, the United States was an agricultural uh, community, basically mostly agriculture. People worked on farms. But during that age of mechanization, people started having to go to cities to work in the factories, and they had to get there on time because the processing plants and everything were going to operate at a certain time. So Henry Ford realized that and had famously quoted, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses because that's how people got around in those days. But he changed things with the automobile. And now that revolutionized the way people got around. And it was a major change in the industry. Now, the poultry industry, if you look at the history, we are two innovators way back in 1957. I picked that date because that's the year I was born, so that'll give you some idea of my age. And back then, it took 42 days, and you still only got a 540 gram bird. It took to get to a 1.8 kilogram bird, it required almost 112 days, and feed conversion was over 4. Well, if we fast forward and look at things, back in 2018, I did an experiment and we achieved 3,500 kilocalories or 3,500 um, uh, grams at 42 days with a feed conversion of 1.42. That to get that same 1.8 kilogram bird, it only took 27 days. And if I were to look at the feed conversion to that 1.8, that was a 1.23. Looking forward here, uh, we are pretty close to achieving almost, if we were to look at that same 1.8 kilogram bird, it's possible with the modern genetics that with selection, that this could take a mere 23, 25 days. And indeed, that's what's happening in some places in the United States. This is based on a research project that we did when we looked at 2003. We know with Havenstein, myself, and Dr. Qureshi, a Pakistani researcher in our department, and basically found a 50-gram per year advancement, and that's a 1% increase. And that's been quite linear and continues. Geneticists tell us that there is enough variation that we can continue on that. But the question is the market ready for that sort of thing? And do we have the nutritional and the management capabilities to deal with that? So there are a number of issues that challenge the poultry industry. I've listed them here in terms of there's disruptive technologies that are happening. I'll talk a little bit about that, novel diseases and biosecurity, avian influenza, and things like that. There are new regulations that are being put into place, as well as analytical sensitivity that actually drive some of these regulations. And that's creating some issues, opportunities for growth and expansion, rising costs and inflation. During the COVID crisis here in the United States, we had major hiring and staffing problems at processing plants. We have the rise of antimicrobial resistance and gut health issues, poultry product qualities like woody breasts and spaghetti muscle, and those things are becoming an issue. We have issues related to food safety, traceability, and reproductive efficiency is now being a major concern. So I'm listing some of the discussions today that I'll talk about will be digital technologies and precision animal farming, some comments about computational analytical properties, technologies, nutrient management, environmental emissions technologies, perinatal nutrition and hatchery innovations, and then also some new technology that will help us control gut health and microbial ecosystem development. Well, first, let's talk about the revolution of precision agriculture. And the reason why I said that we're at the precipice of another major change, just like in the turn of the century when um, uh, Henry Ford was there, we're running into a situation with artificial intelligence that can be utilized in animal agriculture. And there's going to be a major shift, not only in the management of our animals, but also the kinds of skills that we will need for our industry to advance. Now, if we look at things, the Internet of Things is an innovation that has slowly grown, but we're at the point where it's going to become exponential in terms of the growth. We're already seeing significant advancements, and many companies are investing huge amounts of money into that to actually help with that. We've already exceeded $50 billion here by 2020. We're already in that exponential state. And there are lots of things that is being now developed to facilitate the Internet of Things. And there's digitization and sensors, etc. It's already a $2.5 billion market in the world. And the poultry industry is also beginning to utilize some of these things to help monitor our flocks as well as dealing with forecasting disease situations and helping us make more rapid decisions. It's some of this technology is indeed costly, and it depends on the economics of the situation in each country. But certainly, as the prices of these things are going down and we are able to miniaturize these sensors, we're going to see this becoming more and more feasible in lots of places. And to support that whole system is that we have now blanketed by, satellites around the world, the ability to communicate and transmit information from areas that are typically not wired. And so with Elon Musk's satellite system that's already in being put in place, pretty soon wire communications will be completely out of, and even Wi-Fi and all those things that are connected by internet and conventional ways is going to be readily available for a lot of those places. But there are certain kinds of gaps in data and management. And I've listed there are individual real-time data that can measure weight, feed consumption, comfort, that these are all technologies to be able to manage livability, etc. And there are lots of sensors and technologies coming onto the market, as well as capabilities of taking that data and visualizing that. In terms of the environment, we're also have lots of sensors are now being developed, economic means to be able to actually collect this data. But what do we do with all this data? The industry already collects a lot of data, but how do we make sense of it all? And how do we get answers or to our questions from it? And this is where the machine learning opportunity comes into play. And indeed, many of the poultry companies, the global poultry companies are looking at this technology and incorporating this and helping taking all of this data, organizing it in a way that we can then visualize it to make quick decisions and train computer algorithms to deal with many different things. So the interesting thing about this whole concept is that these learning modules teach computers to learn without explicitly programming them and solve problems without programming the machines. But you still need a human to be able to train the machine and to actually program things. So there's going to be a lot of job opportunities in that area. And then the other interesting thing is to be able to mine the data. And when we mine data, it's a process of sorting through large data sets to identify patterns and relationships that can help solve problems. And from that, it can help researchers develop hypotheses, test them, and then more quickly evaluate that data to come up with some conclusions. Then there's the animal growth model and simulation models that are developing. I've been on the committee with the NRC, and we have developed models for poultry, turkeys, broilers, layers, broiler breeders, and those were being used to help us come up with nutrient requirements. And with the advent of machine learning, we can optimize these things more quickly. The other thing that's important here is, the concept of global warming. And so this is becoming an issue for some places, and especially of interest in the European community and other places. And basically, this is the advantage what poultry production has. It actually has the least amount of carbon emissions relative to the amount of poultry protein that's being produced. So basically, I have a saving save the world, just eat more chicken and eggs. And that would basically help us with this global warming issues. And the main issue here that is of concern to many regulatory bodies are greenhouse gas emissions, and the dilemma between trying to satisfy that. And here in the United States, we grow a lot of corn that's turned into biofuels, and that is in direct competition with corn being used in the feed industry. And corn's also a food source for the humans. So there is a considerable amount of discussion there is about the validity of using these grains that are meant to feed animals and people for energy purposes, just to address the global warming issues. But the reason why the feed in animals is one of the main contributors to global warming indirectly. But with the genetic selection for better growth performance and efficiency, these feed formulation strategies to help minimize nutrient waste and the use of food co-products and upcycled food waste, and using certain feed additives to improve digestibility, and some of the precision feeding strategies all help us towards improving that global sustainability in terms of life cycle. So there are computer models now being in use, and some are developing some more, where we're looking at inputs that go into this system, and then to calculate the environmental life cycle assessment. There are life cycle costing and social life cycle assessments, and all of these components come in with a life cycle sustainability assessments. And these are going to be technologies and an emphasis, I think, in the future, because a lot of the world banking systems are now demanding this if they're going to loan money to companies in the poultry industry, that they have to demonstrate their life cycle sustainability assessments as well. And this is just an example of one study that was used looking at the life cycle assessment. It really is the environmental sustainability part, which is a function of land use, global warming, water consumption, fossil fuel use, and particulate matter. And if we compared production in 2010 and then in 2020, we can see that just with the improvements in feed conversion, et cetera, and some of the productivity, we're seeing at least 13 to 18% improvements. Well, by now, we're closer to 20% improvement in comparison to 2010. So these technologies are helping us. And I think this is one of the things to promote the poultry industry, is to demonstrate the great changes that we have made towards environmental impact. So the whole concept of commercializing precision technologies is being adopted by many commercial companies. Some of them are listed here, but there's several others. And their interest in using this precision technologies is to improve with nutrition, gut health, sustainability, and welfare as well. So one of the things that I mentioned with the advancement in growth, what we're finding now is that about 50% of the broiler's life now is within the incubation and neonatal period. And yet this is the period that we know that can have a major impact on ultimate performance as well. And on identifying the nutrient needs is important, because the nutrients in an egg is constrained with what can be put in there, yet the genetics of those animals have a demand that actually sometimes cannot meet the genetic potential for growth early on because of these nutrient constraints. And incubation and perinatal nutrition hasn't really kept pace with the genetic advancements. And so in many cases, during late term incubation, chicks are stressed, either heat stressed, et cetera, and that can have a lot of impact on the performance of birds in later life. Now, back in 2014, I patented a technology together with other uh, uh, in other countries as well, of a concept called de novo feeding. And basically, we put nutrients into the egg just about the time when the embryo begins to consume the amniotic fluid. So this is really their first meal. And for broilers, it's between 17 and 18 days of incubation, and that's typically the time when these birds are transferred. And so we're basically putting in a nutrient premix to help satisfy the differences, what's inadequate. And I can go into more detail about what that would be, but based on some of those satisfying those limiting nutrients, we found improvements in glycogen reserves, chick quality, better gut health, improved skeletal health, improved body weights, breast meat yield has been improved and also enhanced, and immune function. And we've also stimulate a better, more robust gut microbiome by satisfying and manipulating the pioneer colonizers. Here's just an example. This is old data now, 2012, when we did some of this research, and we can notice that when we're use the Anovo feeding solution, which basically is together with the Merck's vaccine. In this case, we've seen improvements in performance on a little bit in hatch weight, but the main thing to pay a look at this, we improved the coefficient of variation, improved in feed conversion, and also in body weights. So since then, there's been a lot of research that's been done, and you can find, lots of different nutrients that have been supplemented, as well as lots of non-nutrient supplements been added to it, many of them having positive results. So you can't put all of these things in there because of space limitations and concentrations, but obviously there's been a lot of research now and multiple publications that support the advantages of this. Now, one of the interesting things about some of this technology is that we can use it to nutritionally imprint the animal to improve nutrient utilization, performance, maybe disease resistance, meat quality, reproductive efficiency. We can improve the enteric ecosystem and even change the behavior and improve stress tolerance by this nutrigenomic programming when they're young. Indeed, when we do in ovo feeding at 4 days of age, we've found many different kinds of genes that are being either upregulated and downregulated, all depending on the formula that we may add. So there's a lot of evidence now that we can manipulate the genetics and the nutrient expressions on how it can influence their metabolism. But also, there's interesting work that's been demonstrated that we can actually program the early microbial community, and that can either be done by putting probiotics on the air cell at 12 days of age or in ovo feeding at 17 to 19 days and getting some significant impacts on how that we can program the gut microbiome. When those pioneer colonizers are symbiotic, it protects the animal against lots of diseases later on. So I think we're at a point where we need to consider reinventing the hatchery. The basic concept of hatchery haven't changed in the last 50 years, but now recently we've got new technologies that are emerging. Some is using in ovo simulation and in ovo feeding technologies where we can do vaccinations and couple things with maybe some nutrient opportunities using pretty sophisticated robots to do so. There's new hatching and early feeding systems being on the market. Many of them have been developed in the Netherlands. And so there are now several companies in the United States and globally that are using some of these technologies as well. Now, I'd like to also talk about this issue about enteric disease and inflammation. And there's a lot of things that can affect gut health. And many times when animals are stressed, either during the early life and in the incubator, it can cause disruptions and leaky gut process. These stressors could be disease or physical stress as well, could also occur later in life. And but not only that, when these stress situations happen, it compromises their ability to utilize nutrients, and especially when the birds are very young. They don't have the digestive capacity to digest fat, protein, and starch very well. And what happens is these nutrients end up into the hindgut and feeds the competitive microbiota, which are typically pathogens. That causes inflammation. And with that extra mucin, it starts to affect amino acid nutrition as well as enteric development. But on top of that, if we, one of the things that vitamins and minerals, they function as cofactors, not only for the metabolism for the host animal, but also for these pathogens. Whereas symbiotic bacteria may actually enhance the use of trace minerals and vitamins. So one of the ideas that we were trying to look at in my laboratory was can I develop a vitamin and mineral premix that actually has better stability, because there's one of the reasons what we do is we over fortify vitamins to compensate for losses in bioavailability and stability. And that consequently feeds these pathogens that actually cause problems. So we're overfeeding nutrient a lot of times the vitamins. So this technology was taking a matrix, lipid matrix, that we can embed micronized nutrients, and that's been patented back in 2018. And that technology has exclusive licensing now with Jeffo, and so they have a matrix technology that they've developed, and that technology is actually helps with the embedding those nutrients in there, protecting them from degradation and chemical reactions. It has the ability where that matrix can be programmed in terms of the size of the beadlets and the integrity of that matrix. We can target the delivery of these nutrients in different places. And the other thing is, as this lipid matrix is digested, it forms micelles that help with the absorption of all of these nutrients. And then it also has safeguarded in terms of that slow release, helps us with more efficient growth. You got less dust that's being produced, better handling characteristics, etc. So there's lots of advantages for that. So here's an example of just vitamin A storage. And this, we've got a copper sulfate in this premix that obviously would be a catalyst to lipid oxidation of the vitamin A. And here we have, after 4 months, if it's in microencapsulated in this Jeffo matrix technology, we do lose some, but not as much as in a competing type of premix or other alternative stabilizing product. And this is what this, in a microscopic view of it, this is a typical vitamin premix. And what it looks like microscopically, trace minerals. Notice that very often we've got to carry the vitamins or the active ingredients on a carrier, add some oils and things like that to actually help with the binding. But with the microencapsulation, it can be put into this lipid matrix and produce these little prills with very good handling characteristics. And so you can see that with that technology, we increase the particle size so you can get a little bit better mixing. It has less dust, better handling. The vitamin premix density results in less segregation. And because we have reductions in solubility, we got less chemical reactions. We can allow for time release, reduces the hydroscopicity, which stimulates oxidative or chemical reactions. And the mineral premix density can be reduced so that we have less segregation. And we have, with those beadlets, much better flow characteristics as well. So if these prills are consumed and it goes into the gastric digestion, it doesn't adversely affect the performance because there are a lot of bioactive nutrients that are degraded by acidity. And so even after 1 hour at 1 pH, 5 hours, you'll see there's no changes in that. So we can actually bypass the gizzard and proventriculus for these sensitive nutrients. But then once they get into the small intestine, they are exposed to lipase and bile, and you can see that then the prills are gradually degraded, and as these prills are degraded, the nutrients are slowly released, and so you have a synchronization of the release of these nutrients with the release of other dietary components from the matrix of the corn and the soy and etc. And because of that, we got much better efficiency in absorption. So here's some examples for this technology. We took we have done lots of research in this area, but this is one of the initial ones that have been published, where we took raw 708s, and they were cocci-vaccinated and put on used litter. We had 6 replicate pens per treatment and per sex. It was pelleted and feed was crumbled. And we had 4 treatments, a 2x2 factorial, where we had 100% of free or the Jeffo matrix technology format, and 30% of the free. The 100% level was the raw 708 recommendations in that. So when we dropped it down to 30%, it was pretty close or slightly below for some vitamins, below the NRC 1994 recommendations. And what happened? Well, at the high level, which is the more commercial levels, encapsulation had no effect on performance. Dropping it down to 30%, no difference. In fact, when it was encapsulated, although not statistically, there was a tendency for an increased performance, which it surprised us. But when we looked at in terms of feed conversion, we see very marked significant improvements by the microencapsulation levels. This was all described in the patent as well. We also seen a significant shift in the gut microbiome where it increases with microencapsulation, the firmicutes at the expense of the bacteroides, or the pathogens. So if we were to look at the ratio between the firmicutes to bacteroides, which is very typically associated with improvements in feed conversions, when we took the commercial traditional premix but compared it to the protected form we called Gut Harmony now, we see a significant increase by almost 3-fold for that ratio. And we know that these antioxidants are obviously maybe absorbed, especially the vitamin E, and higher levels of antioxidants protection results in less drip loss. So this is breast meat yield, where we looked at drip loss when it was breast muscle was put in refrigerated storage, and we can see a significant decrease by the protected vitamins compared to the free, in terms of drip loss. We also found, if we looked at just how the commercial premix relative to what we call now Gut Harmony, but now the vitamin levels and the mineral levels are at 60% of these commercial levels. And even at that, we've seen a 70% increase in the amount of vitamin A that's in the serum, and a 23% increase in the vitamin E in the serum. And so this obviously demonstrate the bioavailability of these fat-soluble vitamins are greatly improved. And that's a major issue in terms of these two different compounds. Also, if the animals were challenged, in this case with coccidiosis challenge, we see compared to the conventional premix level, which has got higher levels, where we have the gut harmony decreased down, or like fed at the 75% of the commercial, we've seen improvements in feed conversion or body weight and improvements in feed conversion as well. And if we looked at reproductive performance, again, we found with these broiler breeders fed from 26 to 42 weeks of lay, cumulative increase of four eggs per hen. And in terms of chicks, so this is the hatch chick. So it's a function of the number of eggs and the hatchability. We see about 5 more chicks. And this has been replicated now commercially at several places and basically seeing the same kinds of results. So this has a huge impact on broiler breeders. Well, I'm getting close to ending my presentation here, but I like to quote a famous saying that Albert Einstein said, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." And sometimes when it comes to the way we produce our broilers and our poultry production, sometimes our innovations ultimately catches up and causes some issues. And so we need to rethink how we may do incubation, rethink how we analyze data, rethink how we add premixes and things like that to get the same kinds of results. And another great saying that I like to use from Steve Jobs, who revolutionized how we communicate. Now everybody's got a phone, a smartphone, and the one who really made that happen was Steve Jobs. And I'm pretty sure, much like Henry Ford, if we asked, what would you like your phone to do? And people would have said to call somebody, Steve Jobs said, no, let's do a whole new platform. What about I actually give you all kinds of apps and allows you to use it for all kinds of other applications, and it still allows you to phone. Well, he said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I think that's where we need, as poultry production people, to start looking at our challenges and rethink, stop thinking the way we used to, but now start thinking with new ways to invent things. And I think with the advent of AI, ChatGPT and those kinds of things, we will see exponential growth in innovation. And for anybody in the poultry industry, I would highly recommend to become very familiar with those kinds of new tools and get on to try to catch that wave of what's happening now. And that's where I'm training all of my new grad students. They all have to be data analysts as well, be well versed in artificial intelligence, and also rethinking how we do things. Well, thank you very much. I'll be very open to start answering any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferket, for such a wonderful presentation and a thought-provoking lesson or lecture that you have presented. So now I think it's a Q&A session. We will now move to it. I would like to invite our co-moderator, Ms. Nika Imtiaz. She is currently MPhil scholar at Yozheng Agriculture University, China. So I would like to ask Nika to please carry on the chat and address most of the questions that audience have from the presentation. It's over to you, Nika. Let me unmute you. Okay, meanwhile, Nika, you were collecting questions of the audience. Dr. Peter, I have a question to you. You have quoted Henry Ford's quote that faster horses, and it really suggests we need to think about beyond the incremental improvements. So, in your opinion, what is the equivalent to automobile that could really revolutionize the poultry industry in the next 20 years?
I think it's artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. Now, we have smartphones, we have all those kinds of technologies. I think what can revolutionize things is and robotics. All of those technologies will actually become the revolutionary thing that we're looking, much like the days when Henry Ford was doing things. And it's going to change things greatly. In the United States, there's a turkey company, and that is actually creating a whole entire processing plant where not a human would actually touch a chicken. It's done by robots and et cetera to process chickens, debone them, the whole works. And there's people that will basically monitor that. It's incredibly expensive. But um, he basically said that the reason why they made that decision and that investment is that during COVID, when people didn't show up to work, we had to close down factories. We couldn't deliver, and it was a major issue. So these technologies are coming quickly, and depending on the different countries and the economics, but even at that place, you could have some novel technologies. There's lots of great programmers in Pakistan and India as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferket. It's over to you, Nika.
Hello everyone, I hope I am audible.
Nika, there is echo in your side.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so much. Hello everyone and warm welcomes to our society webinar series. I am Anika Imtiaz, Research and Academic Coordinator at Poultry Professional Society, and I will be your guide to the question answer session today. We encourage you to stay curious and share your thoughts and get ready for a lively exchange of ideas because your question and voices will make this session truly valuable. And I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Professor Peter. Thank you so much for the insightful session. We had a lot to gain from you. And please allow me to convey you the questions from the audience. So our first question is by Dr. Umair. He wants to ask you if in ovo feeding shows clear benefits for gut development and muscle growth, and what are the main practical and economical barriers preventing in universal adoptions in commercial hatcheries?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, it was a little delay. I had to unmute. Yeah, so this obviously the economic barriers is actually, the delivery using the robotics part. There are using vaccinations is quite universal. But sometimes there are space limitations and some of the, issues when we put in the nutrients. If it's a Merrick's vaccine, it could affect the stability of the vaccine if it's mixed together. So there are technologies that are required, and it actually is a pretty sophisticated thing. And hatcheries are not the most clean places. So depending on the industry or the user, it's being used by some places and other places looking at other opportunities. I'm right now working on other delivery mechanisms that doesn't require putting it in the egg, but because of the new hatchery technologies that are coming available, we can now maybe deliver those nutrients as part of a feed in an early feeding system that can actually overcome some of the problems. And that's using kind of like the idea of the hatchery technology together with the lipid matrix technology that delivers the nutrients like we would put in the egg. So a lot of that technology is merging together to find solutions for situations where in ovo feeding is not as feasible.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. I hope, Umair, that you get your answer. Our second question is by Dr. Usman Sarwar. He wants to ask, does the efficiency of JMT being affected by the pH of gut?
What was the let's see the efficiency of, yeah, so the pH of the gut is definitely affects it, all right, but it's not the matrix itself. It's basically the enzymes, all right. So for instance, lipase doesn't work at low pH, right? It has to be buffered to 7 pH. So the matrix technology is actually developed to simulate the normal digestive process in the animal, and so it's complements the enzyme systems, digestive systems to have the best delivery.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Peter. Dr. Usman, I hope you are clear with your queries. So moving on next, the next question is by Dr. Muhammad Faisal Rafiq. He wants to ask how lipid emulsification affect the microencapsulation efficiency.
So the process is like to make the matrix is a proprietary blend. It's we're using a hydrogenated vegetable oil together with some other compounds that can change the nature of the matrix. Okay, so we can make it harder so that the products is being delivered lower in the gut. We can make some things softer that's more at the beginning, depending on what that matrix is made of, and also the size. All right. So, for instance, if we're producing a product for chicks, transit time might be quite small. We make the particles smaller, right? And you get a greater, emulsification and digestion of that matrix. If we're producing something like a product for dairy cows or whatever, that's 72 hours. So it's going to be a different matrix to bypass the rumen and the abomasum and actually do the same thing. So it's a combination of the size and the matrix of that delivery mechanism. And we can do a lot of different things within that matrix also. So you can embed certain things like omega-3 fatty acids and essential oils and things like that into that matrix also. That's part of it.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Peter. Our next question is by Sabir Hussain. He wants to ask that many of the scientists are using essential oils to encapsulate the various feed supplements. So linking it to the lipid emulsification, what is your comment about the efficiency of emulsification of various essential oils?
That's a great question, and we are diligently working on that. And in fact, I didn't show you all the data, and there's more work, but we can microencapsulate the vitamins, the minerals. You can stack it with essential oils, as well as organic acids. And we're also finding out that if we starve the pathogens, like salmonella does need vitamins and minerals, if we can improve the digestibility of those nutrients up front, you starve them, all right? And so then they can't be as vigorous, and you don't have as high a number because you're not feeding them. And then they're much more easier to control with an organic acid or essential oils. So, and we're also can embed it with certain kinds of other compounds that could benefit things like mannan oligosaccharides and things like that. So this is a tremendous tool, I think, in food safety, being able to reduce salmonella, clostridia, perfringens, enterococcus faecium, and those kinds of things that are all plaguing our poultry industry.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Peter. Another question by uh, Dr. Said from Peshawar. In which part of the world is in-over feeding mostly practiced?
Right now, it's being used oddly in places like South America. There's a few places. I know of some in the Netherlands. Um, there's a few companies in the United States using some portions of this sort of technology. It depends on the system that they're using, right? So, and how their vaccination system is being used. So, Zoetis, for instance, has the biggest market share of in vivo feeding. Their system has that capability. In fact, we did a lot of their early research using that because their technology is and their research is right in the same research triangle park as in our city, in our metropolitan area. So they're neighbors. Um, but because of the way their business is structured, they it doesn't seem to be most compatible for their business operations. But there are other places that do utilize it where they sell the machine and the customer can do what they like. So it kind of depends on the business model, the economics. There's a lot of factors that might play into this.
Okay, with this, I would like to move towards my last question, which is by Dr. Nasir Mukhtar. He wants to ask you about with the use of more food, co-products, and upcycled waste in the feed. How do we manage the variability and nutrient content and potential contaminants to ensure the consistent performance and safety?
Yeah, that's the a major issue where we'll have to start thinking about those. Obviously, the variability can be controlled a little bit by using certain kinds of enzymes that might be compatible for that. So, for instance, if it's distilled or dried grains, we may have to use a certain kind of enzymes that may help a little bit with that. Uh, Obviously, in how you formulate and some margins and things like that. Um, yeah, that's the challenge is that we're trying to deal with some of the environmental components, but then also how do we now control, some other aspects in terms of animal health. But certainly, as our new technologies are being developed, we're finding out that we could possibly do that. That's one of the areas that I'm doing some research on, is that we might be embedding enzymes into this matrix. So we slow release it so that we actually, when the undigested components end up in the lower gut, we actually present an enzyme at that point, right? Because if it's a free enzyme, it might only digest the easiest stuff up in the front of the gut. So we're doing a variety of different types of ways to help us enhance our flexibility in feed formulation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Ferket. With this, we reach to the end of our Q&A session. I hope everyone got their answers and we had an amazing session with you. We got all our questions and queries got cleared. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Dr. Sam.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anika, and a very special thanks to Dr. Peter Ferket for such a clarity in answering the questions, and we'll take a lot of time. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ferket, once again for such a wonderful session and presentation. One of the question I really want to ask is the last question from my side. Your presentation lists many current industry issues from AMR to hiring staff. In your opinion, what challenge is the most pressing and why?
The most pressing challenge for what I presented today, I think it's the biggest challenge is to be able to incorporate all of these new technologies in some way, right? They all come at a cost. I think that the challenge is like, can I afford this? But I think as you'll see with a lot of technologies, as they're developing and they become much more popular and things like that, those costs go down. Um, on the other hand, yeah, they may cost a little extra, but then depending on the economic system, you might need, the adoption. So I think the adoption of some of this new technology might be more challenging in a developing country like Bangladesh and Pakistan and those places where you have a lot of people to employ. Um, but then there might be other things that you can incorporate uh, in there. So I think the biggest challenge is how do we best use these technologies in a way to be most feasible and practical in your operation. So in Europe, we'll see a lot because the labor costs are high and everything. You'll see much more adoption quicker, and places like Japan, etc. Uh, and but other places where it may not work so well. So I think that's the main biggest challenge is we have a lot of tools now. It's just how to best adopt them.
So thank you very much once again, Professor Dr. Peter Ferket. And now I hand over to our session chair, Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, to have some closing words for this session. So before Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, I encourage everyone to engage in our upcoming webinars, that is with Professor Dr. Jeroen de Wolf, who is the departmental chair from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Ghent University of Belgium, who will talk about biosecurity as a tool to safeguard health and reduce AMR in poultry production. So that is on the 18th of this September, in the next week, Thursday of the next week. The upcoming webinar will be the webinar 3 with Dr. Laura Dixon from Scotland's Rural College. She is also affiliated with the University of Edinburgh, UK. She will talk about advancing poultry welfare, practical insights from broiler and layer research. That is on the 22nd September on Monday. So the last webinar of this series will be with Professor Dr. Daniel Preece, who is one of the renowned professor in poultry medicine nowadays. And he's working in a poultry diagnostic research center, the University of Georgia, USA. He will talk about on his recent works, innovations in poultry vaccination, live attenuated strategies against bird flu. So with this, I would like to call upon Dr. Nasir Mukhtar to please end this session with some closing words. Thank you very much, Dr. Peter, again.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. President. I am greatly thankful to Dr. Peter. He really summarized the whole issue of our industries and also raised the issue of the protein and the challenging in the future opportunities. Is also highlight our very important technologies, particularly in overfeeding, that contributing a lot toward the poultry production, gaining the more gut health. So the gut health through this presentation, we think that the gut health is really an issue, salmonella in our feed chain. So we also highlight the many gut issue, drip losses in the muscle mass. So microbiome is getting the recently much gain in the last decade. So I think Dr. Peter summarized the whole issue and there's a solution. Thank you very much. So finally, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to Professor Dr. Peter Ferket for his excellent keynote lectures and to all participants for their keen interest and thoughtful questions. Today's session has highlighted how innovations and science can help us address the pressing challenges in the poultry production. I encourage all of you to take these learning forward in your professional. With that, I formally bring this webinar to a close. Thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you in future sessions of the Poultry Profession Society webinar series. Good luck and thank you very much to all, and Professor Dr. Peter Ferket and also President Dr. Muhammad Syam Akram. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasir Mukhtar, and the participants who are attending this session. So once again, please join our session with Professor Dr. Jerome Dewalt on 18th of this September. The recording of this webinar will be made available in the coming week, and the notes or the presentation handouts will also be available to the registered participants. So, Dr. Peter, can we share your notes, handouts with our participants? Let me unmute you.
Yes, of course. So, do you want? I can send you a PDF of my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yep.
We have your certificate of appreciation as well. We will share it through email. So thank you very much once again. Bye-bye. If you
Bye.
have
Thank you.
anything, if you have anything to add, you can please.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Take care.